our city regarding this whole deal, just like the county does. The county does have a little more power to enforce and to collect fines, but I'd love to see us do a better job, not because of needing better people, but in having more people to help them do their job more efficiently.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, the answer, Chris, is no. Enough is not being done, and for a couple reasons. And one of them is the reason that Margaret had indicated. First of all, we need enforcement, and enforcement takes time. We have a person who's full-time right now in the city of Key West who sits on the internet all day long and just goes through rentals and how many days they're renting them. And then we have to create a sting where we actually go out and see a lease and see a violation of a lease. And then it comes back to our special magistrate. And then it comes into the second issue in the city is that our fines are not a deterrent to continuing that behavior. Our fines are $250. I mean, they pay housekeepers more than that to clean the property in between visits. So we've got that issue. And as Margaret mentioned, we need more people. We need more enforcement. So we're doing two things this year. We are going on a program right now that the county uses, the city of Marathon uses, and also I believe Key Largo may use this year. But it's a formal computerized program that helps us to detect illegal rentals so that we can go after them. But the answer is clearly no. We need a fine that deters people's behavior, and we need more enforcement in that area.
I hate to even utter these words, but cruise ships, it seems to be a never-ending battle, and it's almost like a sparring match between the city, Tallahassee, and Pier B. Is there anything that you see down the road where we can come to a balance to make everybody happy and live together and move on from this? And this is for both of you. Margaret as well, what you would do.
Okay, I'll start. And Joe, did you happen to mention to make everybody happy? Did you use that term really? Cruise ship issue, as we all know, has been an issue in the city of Key West since the early 70s. I mean, this is not a new issue that we have opposing viewpoints on. It's been an existing issue. In 2013, we had another issue with the widening of the channel that went to referendum. And again, it's an issue where we have opinions on both sides. Can things be done and a compromise be made? Yes, it can. In fact, I believe it already has, because by not accepting cruise ships on either Pier B or the Outer Mole, we have actually reduced the potential number of cruise ships a week from 21 down to 7. So that's a compromise. Is it where everybody wants to be? I doubt it, but it certainly is a compromise. It allows Pier B to operate as they have operated, and it has reduced the all number of cruise ships into the city of Key West. Do we have more work to do? I think to come to some type of consensus there. Yes, I do, and I think we will all continue to work on that issue.
Joe, I want to make sure I'm understanding your question, and that is, can we make everybody happy on the issue? Is that correct?
I'm just wondering if there's ever the possibility of a compromise that makes everybody happy and we can move on and talk about something else.
Okay. You can't make everybody happy all the time. However, I think what we can do is identify what the problem is. Is the problem that we want safer, cleaner ships? And if so, how do we identify and define that? And if everybody has the same definition of safer, cleaner, then we can probably come to a closer agreement on the issue. But right now, I think it is a very ambiguous issue. And in an earlier question, the Coast Guard really has to determine if a ship is safer or cleaner. When it comes to the idea of disembarkations, or the number of passengers on a ship, we have to ask and find out and educate everybody so that we're all talking from the same rules and the same definitions. Where did the numbers come from for disembarkation and or the number of cruise passengers on a ship? And I think we need to do a very good job of educating the public as to what those definitions are, because right now a lot of that is very ambiguous as to why things were chosen or why things were said. And I think once we get to clear definition of the problem statement, then we can come much closer on compromise in getting it to a people who can at least say, okay, I get it, and I can go along with that for now.
Yes, this is both for the mayor and for Margaret. As we know, housing was going to come up. The homestead rate in Key West right now is 17%, and this is not something that's brand new. This has been going on for quite a long time. What do you think it is greatly reduced over the years? Why do you think it's greatly reduced over the years? And how can we attract more full-time ownership? And that people will want that incentive possibly for homestead, but to actually live here and participate in everything we do as a community.
Paul, it was a little muddy with the sound, so are you talking about who's voting here?
Yeah, so my question was the homestead rate right now is 17%. Why do you think it's greatly been reduced over the years, and how can we attract more full-time ownership, people that are actually going to stay here on the island full-time and live here, eat, work?
Well, I'm still not sure I understand the question, but how can we get more than 50% of the homes to be owned by people who really live here all the time? I'm going to be honest with you. I think that we cannot take away people's personal property rights, but I would hope that with encouragement, there is something we can do working with our realtors as to how folks go about buying homes, and that maybe we can do something about looking at our neighborhoods more closely. But to say that we can come up with something that's going to tell people they can't buy the house across the street and knock it down for $1.2 million, Paul, I honest to Pete don't have an answer for that. I would love to say we do something like a homeowners association where you have to get the agreement of all the neighbors before you can buy into it. But as long as we don't have those kind of agreements and we're not in condos or homeowners associations, I have to be honest with you, I don't have a quick answer for that. But I sure wish I could come up with one. And I would be more than happy to work with you and the realtors and anybody who's got an idea. Because the one thing I keep saying is, back in the 1990s, the Lower Keys and all of the Keys were declared an area of critical state concern. And I very much want our communities back. And we all know that small businesses really contribute to community because they're the ones who live here and work here, not someone who's just visiting or short term. So I would really like to see us utilize our designation as an area of critical state concern to be more forceful in getting some of these rules and regulations so that we get our community back. And that's what I'm about, is trying to get our community back and our values back that we've all grown to love, and we want them back again.
And Todd, real quick,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to make it clear. My point was, I don't think I presented it correctly enough. What can we do to attract people to come and actually stay here all year round when they buy a house? To make it more, and maybe it's the way I worded it, but to make it more, I want to live in Key West and I want to stay here all the time and maybe go take a vacation somewhere else and be a full-time resident, because our homestead rate is so ridiculously low here.
Terry.
Yeah. And Paul gave an accurate figure. That's one of the numbers that is not anecdotal. We have a 17% homestead rate. And when you have individuals who are not here the entire time, I mean, it tugs and it pulls at the fabric of Key West. You'll find a property that's not well maintained. You'll find a property that doesn't have a pool present. You'll find a property that, garbage cans have been left open and are accumulating rain the entire week because you're just not here. But having said that, and this is going to sound like an odd statement, COVID did have some good things that came along with it. Very few, but a couple. And one of the good things is that we are seeing people right now who can work from anywhere in the United States. And they can do it. We've got a broadband system that's good enough in order to track those business people, and we are seeing more and more young people come to Key West and decide that this is the spot that they want to stay because they can work from the home. And would you rather work 365 days from Minneapolis, Minnesota, or would you rather work 365 days from Key West? So we are seeing some movement there. Would I like to see more of it? Yes. But just like Margaret had indicated, there are property rights. I mean, you simply cannot say to somebody, you need to stay here 365 days a year. We have a different country. We have a different environment. We're a mobile country, and we move. Key West is, part of this is part of our success. People want to be here. I mean, they want to be here, whether it's for 6 months or 12 months, but you want to be in Key West. We're a fun, lively, unique, inviting community, and we are very desirable. The key is, once we've got them, let's trap them and keep them here for a long time, okay?
Traps, Paul, that's what. Mandy?
My question is for Margaret. It's no secret that you have previously criticized the City Commission and some city actions and issues. Is it possible to be both a critic and now a city commissioner? And how would you do so to go from your criticisms to building consensus on the dais and being part of the solution to problems that you have identified?
That's a great question, and here's how I'm going to answer it. The criticisms that I have presented at City Commission meetings were not criticisms against particular people who were serving. My criticism was in a process not being followed, postponements at the last minute, things that had not been fully explained. So to me, I can help bring consensus to make sure that before an item gets to a City Commission meeting, that we've got the facts, we know what the issues are, we know what the data is in order to make it, and as long as we are sharing that information among everyone who's up there on that panel, there's no reason why we can't come to consensus on an issue. So my criticism has not been a person. My criticism is we haven't always followed the processes, we haven't always done due diligence, and we've sometimes kicked the can as a city. And that is something that I think we can do a much better job of. And yes, I will lead the way on that.
My question is for Mayor Johnson. When we were talking about transient rentals, one word that came up was enforcement, and that's come up a couple times today in different issues. What specifics can you provide as far as what type of enforcement we as a city can undertake to correct this issue?
Well, that's an easy one, Chris. We've got, if you take a look at this year's budget, 22-23, we do have a new code compliance officer in there. And if you've watched previous city commission meetings, one of my suggestions and requests is that we take the money that we are now requiring people to pay for liens back into code compliance. And I realize it may just fund it for a year. We did that with the police when we had quality of life officers for 3 years. We funded them and then had to absorb them in. But we're never going to change this unless we create a deterrent. And a deterrent maybe is that you're on the front page of the Citizen and in the Keys Weekly, that you have violated this our transient rental license a number of times. So there are ways to deter people, but it's education. It's a fine that really hurts you, and it's a system that gets it through there quickly, and that we will never have that unless we have an adequate number of enforcement, which is our code compliance officers. And I believe we can get there. We're going to add 1, if not 2 this year, which will bring us up to 3 full-time code compliance officers that are just focusing on transient rentals, illegal transient rentals.
Okay, all right. Everybody hates empty buildings, and there's nothing worse than seeing a world-class street like Duval with empty storefronts. What can the city do to help fill those places up and make the street look better?
Quicker answers.
Okay, all right. Well, it comes right down to dollars and cents, Joe. Rents are very expensive on Duval Street, and people make it or you don't make it. You have a product that people want or you don't. And also, what we can do as the city of Key West is we can make sure that when they put in a building permit, that building permit is approved and they're opening their businesses on time to catch season. The quickest way to ruin a business is to have them miss season, invest a lot of money, and then miss season. So we can do those types of things, but it really is geared around the rents in the market.
Very quickly, I think we need to talk to people, get them on board, follow up with them, make sure when there's something that has to be addressed, we listen to people to make sure that we're understanding the issue and then start to address the problem. But I think part of it starts with listening and seeing what's best for the whole community and then proceed.
Paul, something relatively quick.
And this will be for both of you, is there anything as mayor that you would be able to do to have our current people who live in the city turn them into entrepreneurs, make them have skills that we call Amazon for, that we don't have in the city? There's some very talented people, I believe, in the city, but they need help, our future entrepreneurs, because that's how we're going to grow in the city. So what can the city do? The chamber does a lot of stuff. We do stuff with mom and pops, but what can the city actually do to be there? Because a lot of people they don't know what exactly to do.
Basically, do a better job of communicating, do more outreach, not just sit in the office all the time, participate in more what I call community clubs and groups, and just get the word spread out. And part of that is going to include our military families, because they are also a good resource that we can help to get not only get the word out, but to help get the skills that we need in the community.
We're actually working with the SBC, which is a small business organization. We're working with Maggie Smith, and actually we have held several forums. A number of them have been in Bahama Village in order to create new business opportunities, to teach people how to run a balance sheet, to teach people how to hire, and how to actually get off the ground and have a successful business. So we are doing that right now, and we are going to continue to do that to bring more entrepreneurs to the city of Key West.
Knowing what you both know now and based on current results, what would you have done differently about the cruise ship debate 2 years ago, back in July 2020, which was 4 months before the referendum vote? Were there missed opportunities for compromise, particularly with Pier B?
Okay, I am going to start that because I had the opportunity, prior to the vote, to meet with almost every major cruise line, along with senior management in the city of Key West. And without exception, the one request that they all had was kill the vote, kill the referendum. And there's nothing that will kill democracy than following those guidelines. So Mandy, an afterthought after 2 years, I really think that we're at a point where we have a compromise. We really do. We've met some of the needs of the people that supported the referendum. We met the needs of Pier B. So we do have a compromise there. But I just want to make that statement that the request from the cruise lines is not something that we were ever going to consider.
Okay, same thing. What I would have done differently was made sure that everyone was clear on exactly what the referendums were saying. I would have made sure that everybody understood what current contracts we had in place that we could not change. And I would make sure that everybody understood what were the implications, especially to our small businesses, of the reduction in the number of ships coming, the number of people who were coming to the island, and showing that comparison with those who come by other means and which one of the tours actually drain our resources more than the others. I very much think we needed more data that was clear and accurate, and I would have pushed very hard to make sure we had accurate data going into that and making sure we understood why the things that were being asked for and what they were predicated on. And I think if that had happened, everyone would have been able to make a better decision one way or the other, and I would have pushed for more data and more facts before that referendum came into being.
Thank you for that.
We're out of time, so we'll do our closing statements. We'll start with Margaret, 1 minute, and then Terry, and thank you. So, let's go.
I'm Margaret Romero, and I'd like to be your mayor because I would really like to see a restoration of community values, like respect for each other, helping each other, and getting along as a community. This community has become so divisive that it's not the community that many people came home for or stay here for. And I think a lot of that has to do with misinformation, things not being clear, and fractional groups coming up that need to, again, make clear what people want, listen to the community. We have a couple of things in the past where the community wasn't listened to, and certain officials kept pushing it, and that needs to stop. We need to listen to the community, and the decisions we make have to be for the good of the entire community, not just one particular faction's saying, I want it, and I want it, and I want it. Just because they yell louder, we need to do a better job of listening and serve the entire community good.
Hi, I'm Terry Johnston, and I've had the pleasure of being your mayor over the past 4 years. And it has indeed been a fascinating 4 years. We've had some interesting things to encounter, but we've done it as a community, like we always do. And, I hear this rhetoric about divisiveness and anger, and all I see is an inclusive community who is growing together. Are we changing? Are we changing? Yes. Every community in the United States is changing. And we are too, but we're doing it together. One of my goals is to make sure that we take input from every area of the community. We've had forums, we've had workshops. Even before we write a request for proposal, we will go out and do 4 forums so we write it correctly. So my goal is to continue to move Key West forward, but to do it as one of the most loving, inclusive communities in the United States. So thank you, and I need your vote on August 23rd. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, ladies. Nice job, both of you.
Darren Horan, come on up.
Back the bun!
There you go. While Darren's coming up, unfortunately, Gabrielle Brown is not able to make it. She called yesterday. She had an emergency, and it absolutely is an excused absence. So what we're going to do is, as we did before, we don't want to shortchange Darren since he's here, but the panelists will ask him some questions, and it'll be between him and the panelists with really no Gabrielle involved.
And if anyone hears any booing, can you please escort my father out of here? Thank you.
Let's get your name tag up here. All right, I think we're at Joe. You start. Yeah, Joe. It's much harder to keep track of these things.
All right. What role do you think the school system should play in teaching sex education?
Pass.
Start right out with softball.
So growing up in Key West, I find this one of the most fascinating places in the world because we don't need the school system to teach us about race, gender, sexual orientation because we see it on a daily basis. It's one of the greatest places in the world. And I tell people all the time, I said, Key West may be behind the times when it comes to advancements in technology, but we lead the pack when it comes to social interaction. I'm proud to be from here, And I think that if the school system just keeps out of that realm, the kids are going to learn about those issues just fine on their own.
We hear the same group of people being talked about all the time: police, fire, and our teachers. What do you feel we can do for our teachers to, if not keep them here, to bring them here and let them able to be afford to live and work here to teach our kids?
Well, the greatest promotion for teachers is come here. We have a place for you to live. Housing is obviously the number one priority. It's going to be my number one priority. But there's no greater call to Key West than saying, come here, you'll love it here, we have a place for you to stay.
Hey Darren, school board races throughout Florida are nonpartisan, and Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has recently gotten a lot of attention for endorsing local school board candidates. How do you respond to those who say that the Republican governor's endorsements represent an unacceptable politicization of nonpartisan school board races?
I will address that by saying I am a Governor DeSantis endorsed candidate. And I will say that if it was Andrew Gillum or Nikki Fried or any other governor in office right now, I believe they would endorse me too. Because I'm a product of the school system. I have met many fascinating people who sit on both sides of the aisle. I'm a version of each person in the city of Key West. So yes, while I'm a Governor DeSantis endorsed candidate, and I'm sure many of you would like the governor to stay out of races, I'm going to be transparent. I was endorsed by him. I'm a C+ student out of Key West High School, and I'm an endorsed candidate by a governor of the state of Florida, and I'm proud of it.
Good to meet you.
Pleasure.
Trying to get some of the questions from the hometown folks. I'm going to give you one of theirs. Do you agree that parents know best in all cases? And how do you determine that?
I believe that parents will always try to keep their child's best interest in mind. I have 3 daughters. I can tell you they're all 3 unique. I would never want anyone to try to decide based on meeting one of them that the other 2 are exactly the same. So as school board candidates, we can't assume that all children are the same. We have to tend to listen to the parents of those kids who are being brought up by the parents. While the parents are going to be actively involved in most school board races from here until whenever, they are spokespersons on behalf of their kids. So we have to trust the fact that they know what's best for their children and try to work within that realm.
Are there any changes that you would like to see made at the state or local level concerning schools and public education?
As of right now, I would like to see, let's just be realistic. We all want to have home rule. We all like to have control of our own lives. I would like to get back to a situation where that is possible. We may eventually get there. But as of right now, I'm not going to deal in hypotheticals. I'm going to deal in what reality is. Reality is the world we live in. So that's what I'm going to deal with. Knowing that the situation is going to change potentially when I'm in the school board 2, 3, 4 years from now, yeah, I'll address it then. But as of right now, I'm very proud of our school board. I congratulate Bobby Highsmith on serving for the last 8 years. I think they have done the best they can in a situation that's been unparomounted in this world. So looking back to hindsight 2020 and playing Saturday morning quarterback, no, I think our school board's done just fine. And I think I would like to proceed with what they've already got in play.
Do you think the school district should have more of an intensive program for the kids to educate them all throughout the Keys about Keys history and where they come from?
Civics courses are always a good thing. It still fascinates me. I'm 43 years old and I still learn more about my community every single day. We can't just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm a conch, therefore I know it all. That's just not the way it works, especially with the diversity we have in this group. So yeah, I believe that learning more about your history, your culture, your lineage, all that stuff should be part of a learning education system within Monroe County.
In the coming 18 months, families in Key West and the Lower Keys will have a choice of 4 high schools. Key West High School will have to compete for students and teachers with Somerset Island Prep, whose enrollment is expanding to 100 students. The Basilica School is bringing Catholic High School back to the island after a 40-year absence, and College of the Florida Keys here is building a charter high school academy on this campus. Is this proliferation of alternatives a badge of honor reflecting diversity in school choice, or is it a criticism of Key West High School? And what do you think are the pros and cons?
Well, I would say that there are pros to this in that, we have the opportunity now to have kids go to schools, or parents choose schools that they would like their kids to go to. I know there are very many people who are faith-based people, and they would like to see their kids attend, Basilica School, but that was never an option for them until, you started getting grants. I do see a con being, because I've experienced in my own life, I don't think there's going to be enough quality teachers to go around, especially with the current housing crisis. And even if there are, I don't see the courses being exactly the same. And my daughter she attended HOB for her 6th grade year, transferred over to Sigsbee Charter School, and had transferred back to HOB because she was in AP classes, and the trajectory she was on, unfortunately, Sigsbee Charter School did not give her the classes she needed to stay on that trajectory. So I think we're going to find a similar situation like that, where you may have kids bouncing back from different schools and different schools, which is ultimately going to be a distraction to them. But we need to have a cohesiveness across the board as to this school is going to teach this. This is what you're going to be in, because we don't want you having to deflect and go someplace else and lose track of where you're going. So I think having all the schools having some kind of plan as to what they're going to teach, how they're going to teach it, at least gives their parents an idea as to, okay, this is where we're going, this is where we're staying. Are you okay with this? Yes, I am. No, I'm not.
Cool, thanks.
Chris?
With more schools in town, more students hopefully, school safety is probably going to be a concern as well, and we've seen what's going on throughout the nation. Do you feel that Monroe County and the school board are in a good position to make sure every student is safe every single day?
Yes, because I trust Sheriff Ramsey and I trust our Captain Sean Brandenburg to train our staff, to train our students. Our student resource officers are incredibly gifted. They're dedicated people. I do think there are issues within the school with regard to bullying that need to be addressed. Obviously, that's a separate question, considering a minor issue compared to what's happening in Uvalde and all that kind of stuff with school shootings. But yes, we can always get better. But as far as safety, as worrying about whether there's life at risk, I trust that the fact that our law enforcement officers are trained well enough, they're training our teachers well enough, and they're going to keep our students safe.
Darren, that was not commenting on what you said, but the way you did it was fantastic for my schedule. So, 1 minute to wrap it up.
I'm Darren Horan. I'm running for Monroe County School Board District 1. I'm not running as a Republican, I'm not running as Democrat, I'm running as nonpartisan, because I believe in this age you need to have someone who represents all the people. I'm a product of Monroe County Schools. I am a product of this environment, and I will continue to be a product of this environment once I sit on that dais. I appreciate your vote on August 23rd. Thank you.
Right, next up, School District 5, Sue Woltansky and Alexandria Suarez. Paul, you're going to be leading us off. Almost back on schedule. Right, Paul? Start off. Alexandria, you go first, or
And the question can be for both. What is the plan for the school board to incentivize teachers to stay here monetarily and with housing? Is there something that you would do to make sure teachers are paid correctly and they can afford to live here, because it seems like we're losing an awful lot of teachers.
All right, so as a teacher who taught for over 10 years and had to leave the profession because I couldn't afford it with 4 children at home, I can speak to that. It's not just raising the pay to retain and to recruit and retain teachers. We have to look at other ways that they can stay here. For example, health insurance. If we have high insurance rates, even if you pay them more, it's costing them more. So we need to make sure that we're reducing insurance rates. We need to find ways to partner with the community and reduce costs for them. We need to, if we have to go to Tallahassee and lobby our legislature and our federal congressmen for ways to help with keeping our teachers here, whether it's through grants or stipends or whatever else. I think we need to go that route. Everybody talks about teacher pay. I didn't leave because of teacher pay. I left because I couldn't afford the costs that were associated with it. So that's something that I intend to do when elected onto school board.
So the school board for maybe the last 10 years has prioritized making the salaries the highest in the state. So they've been pretty successful. We've been pretty successful at funneling as much money as possible towards staff and teacher salaries. And recently there's been extra money in the budget from the state for that as well. But the situation with affordable housing, we're not is critical, and I don't see how, teachers are never going, the affordable housing crisis is not something that we can fix on our own. We need to move forward with Trumbo. We need to work with communities to build affordable housing units, and we need to pay teachers and give them compensation as much as they can. But if we really want to keep teachers here, frankly, we don't have a shortage of teachers. They're just leaving our classrooms. They're chefs and bankers, and they sell real estate now. And we need to make Monroe County the best place in the state to be a teacher. We need to make it so that they feel free to use their professional experience to do creative things in the classroom. They need to feel like they are valued, and that their job is so important here that they're willing to stay in the classroom. Because many of our teachers still live here, they're just not teaching in our classrooms anymore. And we need to give them more respect and make them feel valued.
Continuing on that thought, this question for both of you, and how do you feel that the Parental Rights in Education Act will impact teachers specifically when it comes to these type of discussions and creativity and keeping them in the classrooms? Do you think it could have some sort of chilling effect?
You start.
Well, I think it depends on how the board responds to it. First of all, the Parental Rights in Education Act had several parts to it. The first part said that gender identity and sexual orientation can't be taught in kindergarten to grade, I don't remember, it's 2 or 3.
Can be discussed, not taught, discussed.
No, it can't. There can't be instruction, is what it turned into being, and or at an age-appropriate level at a later date. As far as the kindergarten to 3rd grade, that's not part of the curriculum. We don't teach that. However, we do have a diverse number of families. They're all different kinds of families. They might have a single parent. They might have 2 dads. They might have a mom and a dad. They might live with their grandparents. When a child comes to school, they need to feel welcomed, and they need to feel like all the families are great. And I fully expect that our teachers will continue to embrace that and make our schools a place where everyone, no matter their circumstance or their beliefs, feels like they have a place in Monroe County schools. And I don't know if that answers your question, but I think we as a board need to support teachers to let them know that we want them to embrace the diversity of our schools, in our schools.
Same question,
We're not-
Alexandria.
If we keep the applause down a little bit through this, we're gonna drag things out. Go ahead.
Yeah, just how do you feel that the Parental Rights and Education Act could affect or perhaps put a chilling effect on teachers and their classroom activities?
So I stand with Governor DeSantis on the Parental Rights and Education Bill. It calls for transparency in curriculum. Parents deserve to know what is taught in the classroom with their children. It also stands for making sure that this gender identity and sexual orientation conversations are not happening in the classrooms from kindergarten to 3rd grade. I don't see a place for that in that age group. And I taught 2nd through 5th grade, I taught 6th through 10th grade, I taught autistic and Asperger students. And so we need to focus on academics with our students. There's no time for distractions with our kids. If we really want to educate them and have them learn what they need to learn, and we have time for other things, then we should be having time for music and PE and cursive writing and other things that these students need to learn in their education. So I don't see how it would hinder teaching. I was a teacher over 10 years. This isn't a topic that was discussed in the classrooms with young children, and I don't think there's any place in the classrooms for that. That's not the place for it. The kids go to school to learn academics. Kindergarten through 3rd grade, what are they learning? Reading, writing, arithmetic, science, a little bit of social studies at that age. That's what they need to focus on. And it helps the teachers, the good teachers, unbiased teachers, get back to teaching and not have to do something else that doesn't belong in the classroom. That's what you have school psychologists for and counselors for. Anything that's extraneous to academics, there are other protocols and other people in place for those things. We need to get back to teaching our children, let them get back on track after the pandemic and everything that they've been through in the last few years.
I'll keep it simple. Does that teaching include critical race theory?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question.
Does that teaching that you're talking about, where, separating, as you said, separating issues, but teaching math, reading, and such, does that include critical race theory?
Personally, I don't think there's any place in our schools for critical race theory.
Is there a question for me as well? Yeah, I don't, I think critical race theory is a political idea that doesn't really represent what the theory of critical race theory actually is, so it's really hard to comment. Kids need to learn about real history. They need to learn about the challenges of the founding of our country, and they need to be able to see, in order for them to understand history, they need to be able to see it from many different viewpoints. It's sort of like the blind men with the elephant. Each one thinks that the elephant looks different because of the tail and the ears are different. And unless you see history from multiple viewpoints, you can't come up with your own. You can't come up with your own ideas and be able to. You can't come up with your own ideas of what actually happened.
I don't believe history is fluid.
All right, this is a worst-case scenario budgeting question. If something came up, let's say the electric bills, pray to God they don't, but if they continue to go up and the school district decides, okay, we've got to find money to fix this, or if anything else were to happen where you needed to move money around, what programs would you consider cutting to pull money to pay for what has to be paid for that's maybe more important?
So we pay, in our tax, to fund our schools, we pay 90% of the cost and the state pays 10%. And the state mandates more than 90% of what we do. So to say what would we cut, well, it's very difficult. What would probably happen if there was a dramatic drop in our income is that we would have to violate class size, put more kids in classes. If we have fewer teachers, that's what is likely going to happen. hopefully we can get paraprofessionals and other aides in there to help with that. For a program that you could cut, possibly after COVID, we learned that you can do a lot of professional learning virtually, so maybe we could stop administrators and teachers and school board members from going to travel for conferences until we can get the budget back together.
I would not want to cut anything when it comes to education in our schools. I think that Monroe County, the boom that we've experienced in the last year or two, has raised property taxes. The referendum is certainly going to help that John Diggs spoke to earlier this evening as far as shifting money into the operating account so that it's not more taxes, but it's more money that's available to help us with retaining our teachers and making sure that we've got programs and things in place so that our teachers can teach and our students can learn. So that would be something that I don't see that happening with Monroe County, thankfully. I think we're going to be in a very good position. It's just a matter of being fiscally responsible, budgeting, and taking a look at what we need, where the money needs to go. Hopefully the referendum will pass and people will realize we're not raising anyone's taxes. We just need to shift the funds and make it more accessible so that the school district can do what it needs to do for our students.
Can I speak to that for a second? Because that's not how the referendum works, and I want people to be clear that it
You
won't.
can do it on your, so you can do it on your next thing. It's not how we do it. Boo all you want. All.
What do you feel for both of you currently on the school board, and if you were to be elected to be on the school board, what is the one thing that you're going to bring that's going to make the other members say, wow, this person is bringing something to the school board, a specific skill, or why people should vote for you?
That's a great question. What do I bring to the table? Well, I was a teacher over 10 years. I'm the only candidate that was in education. I'm a mother of 6, so I've been on the parental side of things, and my children are no exception to what Darren Horan was talking about. Each child is unique, so my children attended both public and private school because it depended on what they needed individually. I'm an attorney, I'm a prosecutor right now, so when it comes to school safety, who better than somebody who works with law enforcement daily to keep the community safe? So I have a lot of experience that I'm bringing to the school district. And foremost, I've walked in the shoes of many of our stakeholders when it comes to our school board, our school district, our children, our teachers, and our parents. And so I believe that I would be an asset to this school district, and I intend to work relentlessly to help Monroe County get back up to the A district that it should be.
Same question for me. Can you repeat it for me, please?
Sure. Since you're on the school board and then coming into the next term, what do you personally bring to the table?
Okay, thank you. So I am a mom of 2 public school kids that will be in kindergarten to 12th grade. My daughter graduated 2 years ago, and my son is a junior this fall. I'm the only mom right now on the school board that has children in our school district. I'm a pediatrician, but more importantly, I'm a public education advocate. What I have brought to the school board is that I've been studying education policy for about 10 years now, and I am the go-to person when we want to talk about strategizing with something we want to take to the legislature. I know how the system works up in Tallahassee, and when we had a problem with our referendum, I was able to get us connected so that we could get that taken care of. Anyway, that's what I bring to the table. Thank you.
This question is
Gotta keep rolling.
question for Ms. Suarez. Do you share the concerns of the Moms for Liberty organization, whose members recently criticized the presence of a rainbow flag at school board meetings And if so, what specific examples of indoctrination, as mentioned by Governor DeSantis, concern you in our schools?
Okay, I haven't heard anything as far as the rainbow flag. I can tell you that I believe in education, not indoctrination. I believe that students are in school to learn, not to be, they need to learn how to think, not what to think. And I practice what I preach. I was a middle school teacher that led a curriculum that was critical thinking. They learned how to think, and an amazing thing happened. Their writing scores on standardized assessments for the state of Florida were through the roof. Every year I led this program, and we were A+ rated by the Florida Board of Education for this program that I led. Who would have thought? Teach the kids how to think critically, and they will problem solve, and they will excel. So that is something that I believe in. I don't believe we should be telling them what to think. We should be teaching them how to think. And then it doesn't matter if it's auto mechanic or rocket science, they'll be able to do it.
Do you have any specific examples or concerns about indoctrination?
I do.
What does that mean?
I do. CRT is a perfect example of that. It's trying to tell children that this country is inherently racist, for example. I don't believe that. I don't think personally I would be sitting up here if that was true.
Is that taught in Monroe County schools?
I'm sorry, that's everywhere.
Is that taught in Monroe County schools?
It's, well, thanks to Governor DeSantis, he's making sure it's not in the schools in Florida.
Ma'am? No, well, you're making it more than the others. Please don't. Guys, do you want us to waste time doing this, or should we get to the questions?
Questions?
Please.
Just be fair.
Chris?
Okay, to be fair, I'll ask you what we asked Darren Horan, and this is from one of our hometown members. Do you agree that parents know best in all cases, and how do you determine
Who was it to?
that? That's to both of you.
Okay.
Well, I'm a parent of 2 kids, and I can tell you there were times when I didn't know best. Does that mean that I think the school district should tell parents what to do? No. I think we need parents involved, and we know children do best when their children are involved in their education. We need parents in our schools. We need them reading to their kids. We need them doing all kinds of things, and we need to do whatever we can do to get them involved in the schools and to help. But that does not mean that we want to override parents, but not all our kids have parents, and the school does have to provide for some kids the things that they don't get at home, or they don't have a home. So there is a role for schools in children's lives so I'm going to say, I mean, obviously parents don't always know best, but that doesn't mean that they aren't free to make mistakes.
I believe that parents have their own children's best interests at heart, and parents are in the best position to know what education their children need. I can tell you as a teacher and a parent that student success is correlated to parental involvement. So we should find ways to involve parents in the schools. And there's no reason why parents can't be a part and a stakeholder in their child's education. Everybody benefits from it. Our children benefit from it, and our community later benefits from it by these children being successful. And so I think that there's ways that we can do it. There are situations that not every household is ideal, and some children come to school and they're looking for role models, and that's why I feel we need to lead by example.
All right, Joe, you got an easy one for us?
All right. Are there any academic programs in the district you would look at changing? Anything you would recommend to change, or are you good with it?
We'll start with Alexandra.
So I think the school district has a lot of really good programs. I know that trade is something that's the hot topic lately, where we're trying to make sure we incorporate more trade. I would like to see home economics, balancing a checkbook, being able to support different paths of professions for students. Not everybody wants to be a lawyer or an accountant. People can be an auto mechanic. There's a place in society for everybody, and we have to just make sure that we are providing every opportunity possible and all the different options for our students. What I would like to see is I would like to see our district go back to being an A+ district. What that looks like, I'll tell you in a few months when I get on the school board, but I would like to see more of involvement and inclusion. I don't think that we should be pinning public schools versus charter, private schools. I think there's a place for everyone in our district. We have a lot of wonderful programs, so we should build on that, build with our partners in the private sector if we can, and we should look at trade and life skills.
Wow, was a lot there. The whole purpose of school choice initially was to have schools compete with each other, and that's what was going to make us better. We have wonderful charter schools that are homegrown, that were spawned from a need in the community. I'm 100% in favor of those, but I understand that as a school board member, I do have a responsibility for oversight, and I have a responsibility for doing the competitive side that we're supposed to be doing to make schools better. If competition is going to make schools better, then we need to be competing with all the schools. I'm not a fan of corporate charter chains that have
parental choice.
I'm not a fan of corporate charter chains which have their business plan is to make profits off of education dollars. In addition to that, there is no A+ school grade. That I've studied the school grade calculations for a very long time. The district grade is based on a few narrow margins or narrow standardized tests. And when you ask what we need more in our schools is we need more time spent on more authentic education. We need more art, we need more music. Our littlest ones need more field trips. We need to find ways to get transportation so they can go to those field trips. We need more free play for the youngest children. That's how they learn best. So while I'm on the school board, those are my goals, and those are the goals of our upcoming strategic plan.
One minute each, closing statements.
So I'm proud to be a Monroe County School Board member. I'm not a politician. It's crazy to me I'm even sitting up here on this kind of stage. I'm a public education advocate, and I'm here for all of the kids, not just my kids and not just some kids. My goal is to make sure public schools in Monroe County remain high quality and safe and are available for all our children and all our grandchildren. Thank you. I ask for your vote.
Thank you. I'm running for school board. I'm Alexandra Suarez. I'm running for school board in the Upper Keys because I believe we can do better. Actually, I know we can do better because I was a teacher, and I'm a parent, and I'm an attorney, and I see that everywhere we can always do better. I want our district to come out with students that stand apart from the rest, whether it's in Florida and in the country. And we have the foundation to do that. But we also need to make sure that we lead by example. I have led by example as a teacher when I led my school to get an A+ rating by the Florida Board of Education in a curriculum that taught our students how to think, not what to think. I would like to lead the rest of Florida with our district, even with the challenges we have with over 200 students with 29 different languages that have reached our district. And those are challenges that we need to address. And so I intend to help that as well. We need to make sure we recruit and retain quality teachers. And I can help with that because I was one of them. And so I am asking for your vote August 23rd for school board in the Upper Keys because we can do better, and with your help, we will. Thank you.
All right. Next up, City Commission, District 4. And this will be interesting in that virtually nobody in the county gets to vote for these people. But we also figured that most people in the county have never seen these people. So, and city commission races are important, so we're something different. And I will tell our panelists, this is not one where we want to ask all four of them the same question a lot, because we're getting really tight on time, so.
Go, Steven!
Go. Let's who's up. Mandy. Well, I'm saying who's up, so we gotta, you're first. Someone's gotta go. Understood. We'll make it work. You guys here? What's that? Come on. Meticulous schedule. All right, everyone, you ready? Okay. Mandy, you're up. This is most of their first time, so be gentle.
I promise.
Thank you all for
Sort of.
being here. Let's try to keep these at a minute and most minute and a half, so we want to hear as much from you as possible.
Great. I'll just start with the first one. Stephen and Kayla. You're an outspoken supporter of local businesses as a business owner, and you have also welcomed back cruise ships when they returned. Also a supporter of Key West workers. You're hoping to join a commission whose majority has consistently favored the significant reductions that were proposed by Safer Cleaner Ships and approved by voters. Do you expect to be a lone voice on the commission, or do you believe that attitudes on that commission are changing?
You know, that's a good question. Primarily, I look at the working class in Key West. I have the Wendy's down here. I have very many friends that work as millennials, younger generation, 2 or 3 jobs. And I'm looking out for what are the best interests for the next generation. One of those opportunities I saw is in the cruise ship debacle. And during the cruise ship debate, I noticed a lot of things that worried me. I looked into what was going on with Safer Cleaner Ships. What were they saying? Was it true? Was it not true? I looked into every single study that the Safer Cleaner Ships PAC had put forward. I looked into the independent studies. I looked into local businesses. I spoke to local business owners. How is this impacting you? How does this impact your business? How much of your income is derived from these cruise ships and these cruise ship passengers? And I had to make a decision. What is my position? And this was long before I decided to run for office. And when I went into a room of over 100 people, and I was outnumbered probably 50 to 1, and I went up as an independent person to go speak up for what I believe was right. I did it, and I believe what I'm saying is true because I've looked into the data and the research, and our city needs to foster tourism. We need to foster what's right for the next generation, for the community, for the working class. So I don't necessarily know how everyone on the city commission feels genuinely, because I do believe that there are basically what I want to say is that if I'm a lone voice, that's fine. I'm going to stick up for what I believe, and that includes all topics. So even if I'm on the minority side, I will stick up for what I believe. Sorry,
it's tough. I know.
Thank you.
All right. Chris. Sorry.
My question's for Lisette. Nice to meet you. This is actually a question again from hometown folks. Is there an illegal transient issue in District 4? And if so, what are your plans to deal with that? Not only for the district, for your district, but for the city as well?
So I've done some research, knocked on doors, and spoken to a lot of the residents in our district. I'm also very familiar with the patterns of what's going on there. I've lived there my entire life, in my particular home for over 15 years. I've noticed an uptick, just particularly on my block. I have noticed one home that has a non-transient, scoop a little bit. And I did look into whether or not they had a non-transient rental license. So I don't particularly feel like there are illegal rentals going on in our particular district. I don't think that's a problem in our district, not the illegal ones. It does seem like the traffic pattern and what we're seeing does seem to line up with the licensing that is in place.
Joe.
All right, this is for Ryan. The forever issue in the Keys, Key West specifically in this case, is balancing tourism, attracting tourism, which feeds us, and the quality of life for the people who live here. Do you feel like Key West has that balance right at this time?
Let's see. It's a very good question, and sometimes I think almost a little confusing at times. If we're talking about the quality of tourism, which is an economic positivity for the island of Key West, and then we turn it around and say, does the local quality of life, are we balancing it? I believe if you look at tourism, which does drive a lot of positive economic stimulus that in turn improves our local quality of life through where the dollars are spent and things of that sort. Is there something more specific in that question, or is that mostly a general, do you think that tourism dollars are going to improve the local quality of life that we want? Or I guess would be what I would ask you on that.
I'm just overall looking at the balance
You don't really get
between
to
what we're doing with tourism and the community.
Just give your thoughts.
To me, it was very, I want to promote tourism. I want to promote positive tourism. I want to use the economic positivity off of tourism to improve our local quality of life, whether that's infrastructure, beautification, sea level rise, things of that sort.
Thank you, Ryan. Paul.
Okay, my question is for Kimberly. Kimberly, you have, if you were elected and as commissioner, you have a two-part job. First of all, you have to grant the will of the people in your district what they want. And if you didn't disagree all the time, how would you handle that as far as businesses and residents up there? And then also, as a member of the city commission, how would you be in favor of helping other businesses that aren't in your district? Like, what could you do for other businesses as well?
Can you repeat the last part of your first question?
Sure. So, first part is, how would you represent your contingency in your district? But also, you have a voice on the commission, which involves businesses all over the island. So, what would you do to help out businesses?
I think between the businesses in my district and overall in Key West, I think we all have the same goals for the most part of promoting successful business that doesn't rely on tourism. We've got 2 shopping centers in our district that are missing their anchors. So we've got a problem there. We've got businesses downtown that are empty, storefronts. How do we address that as a whole city? The mayor touched on that, but these are private entities, so I think that we're limited in what we can do there specifically. And am I missing another part of the question?
You don't get to ask. So, let's go back to Mandy.
A question for Ms. Cuervo Carey Lisette. You've seen firsthand the city's housing crisis, both working at the City of Key West and now as an administrator at the Housing Authority. How do you anticipate your job at the Housing Authority affecting you as a commissioner? And do you anticipate having to recuse yourself from any decisions or votes involving projects such as Poinciana Gardens, Garden View Apartments, and the renovation of public housing projects?
Really? Yeah,
Hey, guys, be polite.
we are.
So I actually haven't made the decision of whether or not to stay at the Housing Authority. That hasn't been addressed. But I don't think, I'm here to represent the residents of District 4. I think that the knowledge that I have, not only historically working for the city, and now I've only been with the Housing Authority since October. I haven't made it a full year there. So I'm just taking that knowledge. I'm hoping to turn it into positive things, to make some great decisions, to better our community. And if at some point, whether it's a recusal that I may need to make in order to have a fair vote on the commission, I have no problem doing that. But to be honest, I haven't really, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it.
No, that's fair, thank you.
This question's for Stephen. If you were on the commission, what would you say the city is not doing about affordable workforce housing, and what should it be doing?
That's a really important question. Workforce housing and the worker shortage down here is the biggest crisis we have facing Key West.
Yeah.
I'm the youngest candidate in my race. I have a lot of friends down here. I'm the only one that has a mortgage. I have a lot of friends that work 2 or 3 jobs. They own businesses in some cases. I know young families that rent in apartments. They cannot afford to buy a house here. They can barely afford the rent. The only way in order to address this crisis is to increase supply. That's a market economic rule. We don't control the Federal Reserve printing money. We don't control the interest rate. What we can control is the supply of housing in the Keys. For far too long, we've hung on to low density. We need to look at what we can do in order to encourage multifamily homes, accessory dwelling units. We need to do what we can to look at height, increasing height, especially when it comes to mixed-use commercial residential. Searstown Plaza and Dixie Plaza are perfect opportunities to build vertically, and then you can have residents that are workers that live in the area in which they work and which they shop, which will cut down on traffic. So there are smart things we can do, but in order to address the issue, we have to look into increasing the supply. Because workers are leaving, and pretty soon we will not have a workforce to serve our island, and it's coming.
All right, this is for Kimberly. Are there issues that the current city commission is not addressing or not addressing adequately?
Gotta share.
Not addressing accurately. I think maybe taking a stronger stand on the Pier B situation, although a lot of these developments are new, the fact that they have not been reporting their income to the state for a number of years, maybe staying on top of their reports of what they're paying to the city and making sure that they're following the terms of their lease. I think maybe there was some oversight there.
Paul, this will probably go to Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan, nice to meet you. So, as many of the homes in downtown Key West are becoming vacation rentals, is it safe to assume that the district you want to represent is likely to see more rentals as homes are being sold? Do you view this as an issue, and if so, do you have any ideas on how to prevent further spiral of transient rental homes?
Well, I would say, obviously, we've seen the increase in transient rentals downtown. And if you're asking me, do I see it coming towards my district? I really don't see that coming towards our way. I do think our district is prime to help the housing crisis due to the increase in vacation rentals and transient rentals downtown. But I don't see our district being moved into, especially when we're looking, I guess the only place I could really see, if you ask me, is La Brisa, and that being in the condo association of that sort. But I don't see the personal homes and they're being sold out for transient. It's too much to drive downtown, and they want to be in the heart of where it is. Does that answer your question?
All right, that's 2 for each one of you. Ryan, why don't you, since you just spoke, 1 minute for each of you to just wrap up. This is your chance to differentiate yourself, introduce yourselves.
My name is Ryan Warwick. I'm running for City Commissioner District 4. I humbly ask for your vote on August 23rd. I believe I can be a breath of fresh air for the City Commission. I believe in compromise. I believe in crossing aisles. I believe the relationships that I've built down here in this city over the last 15 years through business owners, residents, past and future city employees will allow me to gain the knowledge to make an educated decision. And let's bring back the concrete public. Let's bring back that one human family, that concrete public, that magic that we love. Please vote for me.
My name is Lisette Clearville Carey, and I am the only candidate with direct government experience. I've worked in the mayor and commissioner's office. I think that my experience, my recent experience at the Housing Authority will be a positive. I also, that was in my timer, right? Okay. I also would like to say that I'm the only candidate who was born and raised in Key West. I've lived in this district my entire life. I'm ready to represent the working families and the seniors in our district who also need some attention as far as transportation and being able to move safely between our district and the shopping centers. And I'm truly here to represent the voice of the people. So my opinion in a lot of things I feel doesn't matter as much as the opinion of the residents in my district. And thank you.
My name is Stephen Akela. I'm a lifelong Keys resident, business owner, and new dad. I want my future to be in Key West. I want my family's future to be in the Keys. I've seen the working class struggle and try to make ends meet down here. I've seen many business owners also struggle and try to continue to do business down here. I'm the younger candidate in the race. I'm a millennial. The largest demographic in Key West is 24 to 35. The second biggest is 36 to 45. Our next generation, our millennial generation, has been through 2 life-changing recessions and a plague. We were told to be saddled with debt, to go out and get student loans and try to make ends meet out in the real world. The economy is not there for us. We are the working class. We're the backbone of the island. There's a next generation of entrepreneurs, business owners, and families that want to make a home here. And we need to be accommodating of that and accommodating the next generation so that we can continue the legacy. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kim Highsmith. I'm the only person sitting up here who signed the petition to have Safer, Cleaner Ships referenda put on the ballot. Since this race began, I'm the only person who's shown up to city commission meetings. I've been meeting with city officials, employees, representatives of community organizations. I've been doing a ton of reading so that when I'm elected, I can hit the ground running. I'm not here to be a politician. I don't have a personal or political agenda. I'm not beholden to anyone. I'm a Democrat married to a conch Republican, so I am well-versed in the art of compromise, reaching across the aisle and seeing something from a different point of view. If you want somebody on this commission who works her butt off, who listens to people and gets shit done, please vote for Kim Highsmith on August 23rd.
Thank you all. And before you all get up, well, actually everybody stand up. In this election, more than half the seats up were uncontested, from state senate on down. Here we have a lowly city commission seat with 4 contestants. Wouldn't it be great if every race was there? Thanks, guys.
Really nice job, you guys. Thank you.
All right, state rep, Adam Gent, for Democratic state representative race. Adam Gentle, Daniel Horton Diaz, come on up. We're not too far behind schedule. We're not going to be out at 7:30, but doing pretty good. Come on, guys. Well, their bladders are not as big as ours. Let's see this. It's going to be Chris, so it's not going to be Chris. You guys ready? We're not going to wait for him. Which one do you want to go first? We're skipping order. Joe. All right, guys, we're going right into it.
All right, let's roll. Apparently half the panel left.
Well,
let's start off on the topic of insurance. It seems like it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Is there anything that you guys, and I guess I could ask both of you this question, what would you do to try at the state level to clean this thing up?
Well, I'm happy to start if that's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sure all of us have read the recent article in The Citizen that talks about $100 million in litigation fees that Citizen pays due to fraud in our marketplace. As your state representative, I would appoint a commission to investigate that fraud, so our insurance dollars are actually used to pay for repairs when there's a storm and not to settle out fraudulent litigation. I think we have to remove the corruption from the marketplace and also bring in new actors by trying something that Charlie Crist has proposed, which is making it so if you want to sell car insurance here in Florida, you also have to offer homeowners insurance.
Go ahead, Dan.
So I think part of this problem is that, first off, Monroe is a donor county when it comes to insurance. We spend way more in premiums and payments than we get back in claims. But I think one of the problems is that the folks up in Tallahassee don't understand the uniqueness of this community. They don't understand that our building standards are way higher than they are in a lot of other parts of the state. And so I think one of the important things that you do when you go up to Tallahassee as a public servant is actually build those relationships so that you can have those conversations with the other people that work up there on behalf of their constituents, whether Democrat or Republican, so that you can communicate that uniqueness of this county and you can lay out the problems that we have and say, listen, I think we should, we need special consideration. We shouldn't be paying so much into the system when we don't claim that much back.
Thanks. Just keep on. Paul, you're up.
Welcome, gentlemen. What do you think you could do as a state rep up in Tallahassee to help us here in the Keys to find us more grants or more programs, especially for our housing problem, because we're having a tough time figuring it out?
That's a great question.
Start with Daniel, and I'm scrunching it down to 90 seconds for answers. It seems to be working better, so Daniel.
Do you mind repeating that, Paul? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Paul, you repeat that. I got to step.
Sure. Oh, sure. Sorry. So, what will you do as a state rep up in Tallahassee to help us down in the Keys and Key West with grants or incentives or some kind of program, especially with our housing problem?
Especially with our housing problem. So, I mean, the first thing you have to do, you've got to fight for your placement in the budget, right? I mean, if you're going to make requests, you've got to fight, you got to push them in. I think that we're fortunate in that, on the state Senate side, we don't have anyone running against the incumbent. So I think that we can work with, Senator Ana Maria Rodriguez to try to get things into the budget. But when it comes to housing, I mean, that's what you're asking about, right? You're talking about housing. When it comes to housing, we're not going to build our way out of this problem. We can't. I mean, ROGO limits us, hurricane evacuations, unless we're going to reconsider that, limits us. We have to take a hard look at transient rentals. We got to take a hard look at Airbnb and other companies like that and what they're able to do. I think you have to put limits on the amount of homes that can be used for those purposes. And I think you have to prioritize. Think about how Airbnb started, right? You're generally renting out an extra room in your home. So you really need to be prioritizing people that are homesteaded in the community, that live in the community, and we shouldn't be allowing properties owned by hedge funds or big corporations to be running the same racket in our community when so many families are struggling.
Yeah, I believe the question is more focused on getting more money and appropriations into the community for the housing issue. And I think that's one of the great failures of our current representation is leaving money on the table. It's shocking to me that on July 7th, our governor announced that we have a $22 billion surplus in the state of Florida, and yet we still have a housing crisis where we live. The state of Alabama's budget, $2.3 billion. All that money left on the table while we have people that are paying so much money in rent, insurance, and electricity that they can't feed their kids. We need representation that's going to fight for the dollars we need and deserve.
This question is for both of you. Connecticut and New York have banned the possession of military-style assault weapons. The Federal Second Circuit Court of Appeals has upheld the constitutionality of these statutes. These states also require background checks on all gun sales at gun shows by non-licensed gun dealers. Would you vote for such laws in Florida? Why or why not?
Start with that.
Would I vote? I'd sponsor. We need a full-on ban of assault-style military weapons in the state of Florida to protect our families and to protect our kids. Background checks, red flag laws, and what I would propose is a time period between purchase and possession, a cooling off period so we can avoid an 18-year-old from buying an AK-47 and then slaughtering dozens of children.
Same question again.
Sure. So in 2018, I worked for State Senator Tadeo in Tallahassee during the legislative session when Parkland happened. And so I worked on all of the gun legislation, which was the first time that Tallahassee worked on the gun issue in 20, 30 years. And the reality is that you're going to be limited in what you can do in Tallahassee on guns. That's just the truth. I think if you want to ban ARs and style weapons, you're really going to have to look to Congress, where they've had that as a precedent, and then they let it sunset. But at the state level, what we can do is some things that go around the margins. We can absolutely work on universal background checks. We worked on that in Tallahassee that year. We can absolutely increase red flag laws. In fact, with the bill that passed in the federal government, state reps, our responsibility really should be to make sure that that funding for red flag laws is used appropriately at the state level. And then we need to start looking at other things like mental health awareness, mental health services. I mean, if you look at a lot of these shootings, unfortunately, they often tend to be what you could probably qualify as angry suicides. And I think we need to identify some of these people, some of these students early, do a better job of providing services that they need to possibly try to prevent that in the future.
Todd, may I have just 30 seconds? 15.
You'll do it on the next one. We'll get to it. Chris.
Good evening, gentlemen. Would you file a bill which the county commission last year, the last legislative session, had asked the legislature that would increase sales tax by a penny with the proceeds going to sea level mitigation?
So, Daniel, you start first.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
Yes, I would love to try and make this fast.
Sounding yes or no to me.
Same as Dan, yes.
I love it. Right.
Hey, there you go.
Joe, got another yes or no answer?
Maybe not yes or no. Yeah, it seems like local rule is becoming less and less of a thing. What would you do in Tallahassee to bring some of that back to where we can govern ourselves like we should?
Absolutely. I think sometimes we forget that home rule is written into our state constitution. It's not something that comes and goes and we use it when we want to use it. It's our right, and it's what makes our cities powerful. So, to solve the current problem, what I would do is define the parameters of when the state can use its power of preemption. And I would define it such that the state can only preempt a local law when it is absolutely necessary for the health and safety of Floridians. Otherwise, the local law stands, which aligns with our state constitution.
I mean, I think that sounds great. I don't think that's how Tallahassee really works. You know, with local government control, I've said from the start, I'm a full supporter of local government control. I think local government knows best. I think local voters and local people should be able to vote to solve their own local problems. But up in Tallahassee, you've got a lot of money in special interests and big corporations that are making sure that we can't control what we want to do at the local level. So the reality is I think you have to be able to go up there and build coalitions across the aisle. And I think that local control of government and home rule might be one of the few issues in Tallahassee that there really is potential to work across the aisle on, because you're not really talking about political differences as you're talking about the differences in the districts that the representatives represent. So I would like to target Republicans and Democrats that represent communities that have municipalities, towns and cities that want to write their own laws and control their own problems and solve those problems. And I think that there is potential to reach across the aisle, do that work behind the scenes, and actually create an environment where you can actually empower cities and local communities to make their own decisions.
Gentlemen, what is your one item that you want to present to Tallahassee that's really important to you that you're running with?
It's affordable housing. It has to be. I was knocking on doors this weekend, and my campaign manager and I had 5 people that we spoke to at the door that broke down in tears, just talking about how much they're struggling in the community. And you know, it's something that was a problem 6 years ago. It's something that I know the local electeds want to work on or want to fix. But I think that we've got to go to Tallahassee and really push hard to do everything that we possibly can to look for options for affordable housing, whether it's funding, like we were talking about earlier, make sure the Sadowski Trust is fully funded so that you have that affordable housing money available, whether it's working with the local county, working with the local cities to make sure that we get them the block grants that they need, whether it's looking really outside of the box for alternative housing. I mean, even looking out at the mooring field, there are people that live out there. Those are the people that work in our restaurants and teach in our schools, making it more available for them to be there instead of making it harder, which is just on the last cycle.
Yeah, I echo Dan there, but so I'll take another on that one. Another thing in the Florida Constitution is a right to privacy, something that we don't have in our federal Constitution. That's one of the reasons we've seen Roe v. Wade overturned. So, I believe that we need to codify the right for reproductive health at our state level. We need to codify the right to contraception, to the freedom to marry who we love, and the right to privacy to live our lives as we choose to live them.
Is bipartisanship at all still possible in Tallahassee right now?
Absolutely. I think that we are kidding ourselves when we say that we're so divided. When I talk to a lot of Republicans and a lot of non-party affiliated voters, I find that there's a lot of common ground. All of us want to give our kids clean water. All of us want to have good education for our kids. All of us want to make sure that we have an environment that's sustainable into the future. On these issues, absolutely.
It's absolutely possible, and I've done it. When I worked in the state senate, what I did as a legislative aide was I proactively did my research and found one bill with every state senator that my state senator could co-sponsor, because we wanted to make sure that as a new state senator, she was able to walk in, make those new relationships, and show that there was an opportunity to work across the aisles. The challenge for Democrats in Tallahassee is that whereas you can work with people behind closed doors, you're generally not going to get credit. So if you're going to go up there and you want the spotlight and you want the credit, you're not going to find it. But if you go up there working on people's behalf, having the quiet, private conversations with people on the other side of the aisle, and showing them that you really care about your community and you're willing to listen to what they want for their community as well, you can absolutely get stuff done in Tallahassee.
Chris?
Once again, from the hometown group, do you think the state legislature was correct in taking action against Disney for opposing the law commonly referred to as the Don't Say Gay law?
I'm sorry.
Yes, didn't come on. Say it again.
Do you think the state legislature was correct in taking action against Disney for opposing the law commonly referred to as the Don't Say Gay law?
Thank you. I'm sorry. No, they weren't. And it's about as hypocritical as it gets to come after one of the big corporations that basically funds most of the elections in this state. When they come out and actually speak against you, when they were funding your elections in the past anyway, it's kind of a joke. But that's kind of what you run into in Tallahassee. Hypocrisy does run deep. And what you're really talking about is having to go up there and take on some big corporate interests and be willing to fight that fight. So were they right? No. Will they keep doing it? Probably. But the only thing that we can do is to start winning some of the seats like this, get those numbers closer to even up in Tallahassee so that both sides have to come to the table so that those special interests don't have so much power.
No, it was a despicable abuse of power, and I think it's a real pity if we approach this opportunity to go to Tallahassee with the idea that these things that are happening that are bad and terrible for our state and destroying our democracy are probably going to continue. Therefore, somehow we have to accept them. Let's be bold and let's punish this type of behavior, which I believe is antithetical to our democracy.
That's 2 full rounds. I'll give you a minute and a half to do a closing statement. Adam, you start since you were just talking.
Great. I believe that I'm the best candidate for this position because of my experience. I've experienced investigating real corruption in businesses and government. I've experienced working in the area of affordable housing, helping people stay in their homes. I've experienced working with the environment, with scientists and government leaders to ensure that we have a sustainable future for our families. No one else on this stage has that wealth of experience, and that's the reason I'm sitting here today. And it would be the greatest honor of my life if I could have the opportunity to serve each and every one of you as your representative in Tallahassee.
Daniel Horton Diaz, Democratic candidate for the State House. I think that what makes me different in this race is actually my experience, and I believe I have experience in this race that matters. I've worked in this community. I've run in this community since 2016. I ran for the State House. And most importantly, it's not just experience about what you do and what you put on your resume, it's who you care about and what you're willing to do to accomplish things for the people that you care about the most. And I've done that. I've made sacrifices in my career prioritizing getting service in the state legislature, working directly on voting rights nonprofit at the state level, working in Congress as the district chief of staff in this community, because I believed that from the first time I ran in 2016, the people that I met here made a difference in my life. And I've been helped. I grew up in a family that was helped. I come from nothing. And if I could give back to this community and the community that I care so much about in the smallest way, you can always count on me to prioritize you and helping others first. It's all I care about. It's what drives me. And that's my passion, and I hope you'll give me the chance to do that as your state representative in District 120. Dan Horton Diaz, Democratic candidate. Thank you for your support.
Cool. Thank you both. Okay, our final group of the evening is the state rep Republican. We've got Robert Ellen, Jim Mooney, the incumbent, and Rhonda Redmond Lopez. Come on up. 7:20, so we'll be about 10 minutes over. Clinton, can your camera pan?
Yeah.
Can the creature stand up just so we can? We're not endorsing anybody, but he's been sitting in that hot, horrible thing all night, so he deserves a little bit of it. So. I can't, up here I can't see anything, so it looks like a rat. What is it? Is it a manatee? Rhonda, what is it? I really don't, I can't see. Okay.
He's a stakeholder in House District 120.
All right.
And he wanted to be here.
I'm fine. I didn't mean to, I wasn't, it was real, I'm so sorry I called it a rat. I couldn't tell.
What is it?
I feel terrible now. It's a manatee. It is a manatee. I cannot see anybody. That's why I picked on you, ma'am, in the front row. You're the only person I can see. So, all right, let me just try to bail out of that nightmare. So, is Robert Allen here? Robert Allen, come on down. We're going to start with Paul, since we got all discombobulated. Well, I think that we're at the end here. Let's sort of see how it goes. This is a very important race. I think it's worthwhile to not do all three time after time, but if there's certain questions that lend themselves to an answer from all three, then you use your discretion. Okay. So, okay, everybody here? All right. We'll start at the end with Jim. Come on down. Well, let's see what Paul wants to do. Yeah.
Perfect. My question is going to be for Jim.
Okay.
Jim, in this session, you had to work really hard with wind insurance, as we were all asking for, and I know there's been some hurdles in Tallahassee. There's been some discussion with citizens and trying to get away from them or create something in the Keys. In the next session, re-elected, what do you see that you could do to help out for everybody in the Keys with wind insurance, and especially the people who have opted now, and a large majority who do not have wind insurance anymore because they can't afford it?
Thank you for the question. Yes, the special session on insurance was at best interesting. I think we all know that we did not get here in a day and we'll not solve it in a day, because that's what we were there in a day. What I did debate on the floor was trying to get citizens back in the posture that they were initially put in place for, which was the last resort insurance. They have since expanded out into sinkholes and property insurance, and continued to add on policies, thus running out other insurance companies that absolutely can't compete with them because of what they do. That said, the hardest part in Tallahassee is to make people understand that Monroe County is different. anybody wishing to watch the debate on the floor that I did on the insurance day, clearly the standards across the state are detrimental to the insurance industries. While Monroe County has the highest insurance ratings as far as wind load, we probably follow FEMA better than anybody else, but on the wind load side, we are the leaders in the state, yet many counties across the state are so subpar. And those subpar counties are what lead to the insurance rates overall escalation in prices, thus impacting all of us in this room and throughout this county.
Thank you, Jim. Mandy?
I have a very quick yes/no question for all three candidates, and it actually came from the members of Hometown from the submitted questions. Do you believe, all three of you, do you believe that Joe Biden is the duly elected president of the United States? Do you believe Joe Biden is the duly elected president of the United States?
Robert?
Testing. Okay. In one word, no.
Rhonda?
By national law, Joe Biden was named the President of our United States.
Jim?
Yes, he's the President of the United States.
Chris?
I'll go back to the question I asked of the Democratic candidates. Do you think the state legislature was correct in taking action against Disney for opposing the law commonly referred to as the Don't Say Gay law? That's a quick question for all three.
Start with Rhonda, then Jim, then Robert.
I most definitely do. No mega corporation should run our legislature and try to run a town.
Thank you. Underneath state law, there are roughly 2,000 special districts initially set up throughout the state, Disney being obviously the largest special district in the state of Florida. How it went down is a matter of debate for anybody that wants to debate that amongst themselves. But the reality of it is they are one of only a handful of special districts that are still existing in today's standards. So by state law, they must conform to the statutes in place, and therefore they need to come to a resolution and abolish or massage that particular district.
Can you ask the question again, please?
Sure. Do you think the state legislature was correct in taking action against Disney for opposing the law commonly referred to as the Don't Say Gay law?
Commonly referred to by whom?
Almost everyone who read it.
Everyone on this panel.
I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Who's supposed to be asking the questions?
Joe, you're up.
My turn? Okay, Paul asked Jim this question. I'd like to get an answer to the same question from you, Rhonda, and Robert, and that is on insurance. How would you go about trying to get this thing straightened out in Tallahassee?
Let me tell you what our problem is in Tallahassee. We're top heavy on trial attorneys, billboard trial attorneys in Tallahassee that put an R beside their name. We need tort reform. The other states that have had a problem with high insurance rates, when they implemented tort reform, their rates went down. We need tort reform, and we need a more small business perspective in Tallahassee. It's hard to get the legislature in Tallahassee to go along with tort reform when leadership on both sides are trial lawyers, billboard trial attorneys, because the last thing a billboard trial attorney wants is tort reform. But that's what we need, because we are a sue-happy state, a judicial hellhole for suing. And whenever we get sued or a lawsuit is done anywhere in the state, the costs are passed on to us with our insurance premiums.
Could you ask the question again, please?
Yeah, what would you do in Tallahassee to try to fix the insurance problem we're dealing with here in the Keys?
Everything I can.
Okay. Paul?
This question will be for Jim. Jim, in the legislature this year in Tallahassee, what would you say was the most frustrating thing besides the wind insurance? that you had to deal with that really represented the Florida Keys and Key West?
Well, you know, the hard part of Tallahassee when it comes to Monroe County is that everything impacts us times 10. I don't care what the bill is, it just has some underlying or overbearing theme to it that impacts us differently. Again, because the area of critical state concern being one of the largest reasons. Obviously, housing continues to drive the train. There was a lot of discussion. I actually brought forth a bill, fee and lieu security. Not only did it pass the floor, it passed the floor of bipartisan support. Unfortunately, never made it out of the Senate. But housing is a big issue in Tallahassee that affects, again, the Monroe County specifically. But it's, you know, we're not unique in this situation. It is a statewide disaster waiting to happen. And we can correct it, but it's going to take a lot of hard work, and there is no magic wand to fix that overnight. We just have to continue to do what we do and do it as hard as we can.
This question is for Rhonda. I asked the same question of the Democratic candidates. Is bipartisanship still possible in Tallahassee, and is it a goal of Florida Republicans?
Well, if bipartisanship worked in my household growing up with my daddy being a Blue Dog Democrat and my mother being a Republican, I think we can make it work in Tallahassee. I think everyone, especially in this room, this county, and this country, they want the best for this country. And we can find common ground. We cannot get frustrated. We cannot insult each other. We have to find common ground and commonalities. We won't agree on everything, but my grandfather told me, he said, Rhonda, if you are getting ready to vote for someone in office, if you can find a candidate that you agree with over 50% of the issues, you've probably got your candidate. Because even if you're partisan, you're not going to always find a Republican or a Democrat that's in line with 100% of the things that you agree with. So we've got to give, and we've got to take, and we've got to respect each other for the betterment of this country and this world for that matter.
My question's for Robert. What separates you from the other two candidates for this position?
Well, I've been working in the Keys as a licensed contractor for over 20 years. It's been one of the greatest experiences of my life, working for the homeowners of the Florida Keys, and I see their interest in not being represented at the state level at all. I see career politicians who are more interested in building bridges with other politicians than going there and representing the people who voted for them.
Heard a news story today that the state attorney general sent a letter to President Biden calling fentanyl public enemy number one. I think her terminology was a weapon of mass destruction. It's a problem all over the nation. It's certainly a problem. It's showing up. The sheriff tells me regularly they're finding it here in the Florida Keys and all over the state. What can you do in Tallahassee to try to get a rope around this and slow this down?
Who was that for?
Fentanyl, for all three.
All three, okay. Robert, why don't you start?
Did you just call Brandon the president?
Do you want to talk about fentanyl or do you want to?
As far as I know, fentanyl is coming over the unprotected southern border, and that is what's creating the problem.
Roger.
You're not going to like this, but would you please repeat that lengthy question?
The state attorney general sent a letter to the president today calling fentanyl public enemy number one, or weapon of mass destruction. What would you do in Tallahassee to try to bring legislation to help get a rope around this, to slow this down a bit, because it's killing people?
Well, it's no secret it's coming in from the border. A lot of that's coming in from Mexico and from the drug cartels. They're bringing it in, they're lacing, even, I'm understanding they're even lacing like a simple marijuana joint, they're lacing it with fentanyl. We've got to close our borders. We've got to control our borders. Also, I'm a big proponent of family values, and we need to try to keep the family unit intact, because when a child has parents that stay abroad, what's going on in their life. That helps a lot with keeping them to stray into illegal drug use. And I actually have a friend that was a captain at American Airlines, and his son just passed away from some type of drug that he experimented with that was laced with fentanyl, and he passed away with it. We've got to close our borders, and we've got to get very strict on convicting these drug dealers. Put them away and lock them up and throw away the key.
Jim?
So I think the question was, what can you do in Tallahassee, correct? So obviously in Tallahassee, a number of things. We can't stop the border. We can't do any more to protect the border in Tallahassee. What we can do, write a resolution, have it codified by the House and the Senate, and then send it to Washington, D.C. to let the Washington, D.C. leaders know that the state of Florida will not tolerate the open borders, which are allowing the flow of fentanyl into our country. That's what we can do. The laws are already on the books for everything else, but what you do in Tallahassee, unfortunately, we can't go to the borders and fix that ourselves. But we can let them know that the state of Florida absolutely will not tolerate it and absolutely does not condone that behavior.
We can crack down. Rhonda, don't cheat. We can do one more round if we keep them quick like we've been doing. So, Paul, you're up.
I guess to all three, is there any one position or item you would like to try to work on to support the school district in the Florida Keys and the teachers with Tallahassee? You can't. How's that? Is that a little bit better? Okay. Is there one item on your agenda that you will do in Tallahassee to support the school district and the teachers and the workers in the Florida Keys?
Ron, you start. Go to Jim. I'm so sorry. Is there an item that you would work for in Tallahassee for the schools and teachers?
First of all, I would try to get teacher pay raised because I am the daughter of a lifelong public school teacher. I would want to protect the pensions of the teachers, and I would also want to raise their salaries. That is so attractive to get the type teachers we need. We need their salaries and their benefits to be competitive. I had someone tell me, oh, teachers, they don't need to be paid that much because they do it for the love of the profession. Let me tell you one thing. My mother was a teacher almost a half a century, 48 years, and she taught and helped. When she taught, her paycheck came home and helped put food on the table. She loved her profession, but we need teacher raises, and we need them now.
Jim.
Great question, by the way. Actually, this past session, I started working on that exact problem. School boards across the state of Florida, in particular Monroe County, have numbers of vacant properties across the state, and Monroe County has its fair share of vacant properties. The problem with housing on the school board properties is that when you go to build workforce housing units on those properties, there are state statutes that drive the train on what is affordable and how those standards are met. So what you get is an upper echelon, particularly the admin side of the education world. You get an upper echelon pay scale that looks very good on paper. It's not so good in reality. The reality of it is that the number of school board people across Monroe County and across the state again won't qualify for many of the housing projects that could be built on free dirt, so to speak. I know the school board has already contacted me. We looked into that. It was too late to actually attack that state statute. But if we can get that state statute to abandon the actual rules and regulations of what is considered workforce/affordable housing and escalate those minimum standards up to a higher cost, then we can really do something for the teachers. The teachers are the highest paid in the state of Monroe County. It'll never be enough. I'm a former teacher, and I still can tell you my first take-home pay was $409 a month. Now, it hasn't gotten a lot better. But that said, that's what you need to do.
Hey, guys in the back, we can hear you. We're almost done. Robert.
I'm sorry, but could you ask the question again, please?
Well, if you're in Tallahassee, what could you do to help our schools and teachers in Monroe County?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. need teachers who can afford to live in Monroe County. And as a representative of this district, of District 120, I would help improve that. I also believe in home rule as far as education goes. I believe that well, that's really important. I mean, the school boards need to control what happens in their districts, and state regulations should not be as important as what happens at this local school board.
Thank you. Man. Looking for a quick one.
I know. All three, yes, no question. Would you support background checks on all gun sales at gun shows by unlicensed gun dealers?
Start with Jim. Background checks on licensed gun dealers.
Background checks on unlicensed gun dealers?
Yes or no?
At gun shows.
On unlicensed gun dealers?
Background checks on gun sales at gun shows by unlicensed
Background
dealers.
checks are absolutely fine.
I'm so sorry. One more time.
That's all right. Would you support background checks on all gun sales at gun shows by unlicensed gun dealers?
As our audience said, that's already in place. We need to support the laws that are currently on the books for guns.
Can they? I didn't know that unlicensed gun dealers could go to gun shows.
Chris, what do you got? We're almost done.
Okay. This is for everyone once again. Mental health services in the Keys are somewhat lacking. And we have a crisis down here, some would say. What can you do in Tallahassee to help our residents with this?
Starting with Robert.
What is the question?
Mental health services.
Services?
Yes.
I'm not familiar with mental health services in Monroe County. If I was, I would find people who are more qualified than I would, and I would ask them.
Okay. Ron.
We have a surplus budget in Tallahassee. I would do everything in my power to get more money allocated for mental health services. Let me tell you one thing. These mass shootings that are going on, people want to grab the guns. Let me tell you, we have a mental health crisis with our young people. They need help. Mental health, brain issues are the elephant in the room. Nobody wants to talk about their cousin or their aunt or uncle or their child having a mental health problem. A mental health issue is just like a heart issue. I'm tired of the stigma. We need to put more money and allocate more money into mental health facilities, not just in Monroe County, but throughout this nation.
Obviously, mental health issues are a massive issue, not just in Monroe County, but across the nation. That said, that what you do in Tallahassee is you have to sit there and you have to use the rules that are in place. The municipalities, the stakeholders within this county must continue to ask for the funding. And it shouldn't always be through appropriations. There are grant programs out there, and all the stakeholders have leadership. Monroe County has a great team inside the system that constantly is looking for more money to upgrade. But the reality is our facilities, our infrastructure is poor at best across this county. Housing will also be an issue, getting mental health experts in place. But we will continue to expand on that. You continue to reach out for all the funding possible and do the best you can with what you have up there. There is, again, no one-size-fits-all and no quick fix to any of these things. If there were, we would not be doing this evening. There are lots of great questions tonight, and that's another great question, but unfortunately with a very difficult answer. But what you do is you reach out for the funding, it's in place, continue to push for more funding, and continue to upgrade your infrastructure, thus attracting better professionals in that field.
Thank you, Jim. All right, Joe, last question.
All right, for Jim, what do you consider your biggest accomplishment in the 2 years you've been in this position? And for the other two of you, what's the biggest thing he's left on the table over the last 2 years?
Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
We'll do it. Jim, Robert, then Ron.
Well, I think really the accomplishments are some of you don't see, you don't read about, you don't hear about. We have helped numerous people from the disaster of the unemployment issues to rebuild Florida issues to getting people into housing that they're about to lose their homes, to helping people get new windows, get their homes fixed up. Nobody reads about that. We don't put it out on our internet. We don't put it out on Facebook. We don't do any of that because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to help these people when they ask. Aside from those things that we don't know about, we certainly know they're bringing home $80 million to District 120, and the majority of that funding, almost all of that funding, comes into Monroe County. To continue to foster relationships, to bring in an additional $110 million this year into Monroe County from the state. Those are accomplishments that we don't read about them, but that's my account. $80 million, over half of that directly related to the environment and protection of our green spaces, and so I'm very proud of that. Very proud of that.
Okay, I respect anyone doing their best and working very hard. That $80 million brought back, you guys may not know, but a lot of that $80 million is allocated before we even have a representative go up to Tallahassee. There's multi-millions that's going to get sent back here, whether we have a representative or not. But when we did not get a dime of funding for AHEC, that was disastrous. That was almost $750,000, half of AHEC's budget. AHEC, of those that you are not familiar, that's the mobile unit that goes up and down the Keys. They provide 10 out of 12 of our schools with a nurse practitioner. They provide a dental unit. Some of these children and even adults visit this AHEC unit. They never see a doctor or a nurse other than that. That was a community project. All the big bucks that went to the big projects, what about our hometown small projects like AHEC? That was terrible. Also, I was very upset when our current representative voted so much against Governor Ron DeSantis, voted against him on parental rights, and pushed House Bill 2508 that would have destroyed our waters and our marine life. That bill would have diverted water that God intended to flow south to our Florida Bay and Everglades. That's our water. Would have sent it north to special interests such as Big Sugar. No way.
And hand it over to Jim. 30 seconds, Jim, to respond.
No worries. AHEC had put an appropriation for $600,000. The previous two sessions, they received $800,000 of funding. No one runs their business on state appropriations. No one. Do never hang your hat on a state appropriation. That is a pure fact. Okay. As for 2508, that bill did never stop water from flowing south, although it was full of boogeymans.
Okay. Robert.
Well, last year, Mr. Mooney voted for House Bill 735, which eliminates the ability for counties to issue trade licenses for around a dozen trades. I personally lost a job last December. It was between $8,000 and $9,000. And what this does is, this is just not for me. What this does, when a county cannot issue trade license, they cannot prove that someone working in the trades is an American citizen. So when this was created, Mr. Mooney helped to give every non-citizen on the planet a state they can move to and work in the trades without proving citizenship. Also, this year, Mr. Mooney voted for voting districts in the state of Florida that favor Democrats. And Mr. DeSantis said, no, I'm not going to sign this, and he sent it back. And we need representation in Tallahassee, and this is why I'm running.
And this question is almost a setup to cause a...
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, then let's just close.
The lack of knowledge is fine. 735 bill didn't go into effect in 2023, so anybody that loses a job on a bill that doesn't go
Jim,
into
let's
effect.
kill it. We'll just
kill it. Let that happen.
No, I'm sorry.
The rules,
Finish
right?
Your thought. Finish your thought.
735 does not go until July of 23 into effect. Period. As for the redistricting maps, I said in the redistricting committee, it's transparent. There are state laws. The governor has his ability to do what he wishes as well, but we follow the state laws in our committee. and thus we put the maps on the place in state law, which is required by the Supreme Court of the state of Florida.
Let's have Robert, closing statements. About a minute.
My website is rhinohunter.net. That's RINO hunter.net. I'm running in this district to represent the people of this district who have been so disappointed and who are also some of the best people I've ever met in my life.
Jim Mooney, your city and state representative, it's been an honor to represent you. I told you 2 years ago I represent you with honor and dignity, and that's what I've done. I have fostered relationships that were previously met by Ron Saunders, Ken Sorensen, Holly Rashine. Those relationships have allowed me to garner the leadership backing in Tallahassee. I won't go into all the people who are backing me in Tallahassee, but the leadership are backing me. Fraternal Order of Police are backing me. But that said, it's not about any of those leaderships. It's about representing you. And that I've done with, again, honor and dignity, and I look forward to your support on August 23rd.
Thank you, Jim. Rhonda.
Well, I'm not part of the Tallahassee swamp. I'm not part of the Tallahassee establishment. I am you, and you guys put me on the ballot. I didn't pay $2,000 to get on the ballot like this guy did and this guy did. And I want you to know that from farm to sea, South Dade, where our farmers are, I will support them and make sure they get their fair share, just like Monroe County. And also, I want you to know no one will outwork me. Nobody at this table has the energy that I have. I will be the best representative that Monroe County has ever had.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Jim. All right, everyone, that's it for the evening. Thank you all for coming. I would like to say it was the best behaved crowd ever. I will not say that. And Rhonda, if you want your manatee to come up here on the stage.
Yes, you guys should meet Marty the Manatee. Get over here right now.
I did not mean to disparage Marty. No.